Enough is enough. I recently did a plant purge and I'm going to tell you all about it. Welcome to my channel. I'm Cece with One Green Pea. If you are watching this video, then very likely you love houseplants. Maybe you appreciate how they make your space look, or you enjoy caring for them, or you just appreciate the peace and joy that they bring in your life. At some point, almost all of us experience a place where the joy of owning houseplants is shadowed by the chore, the work, the overwhelm of it. In today's video, I'm going to share my experience with you and then give you my top tips for how to deal with the feelings of overwhelm and perhaps how to avoid getting there in the first place. In the last month or so, I didn't get all the way to overwhelm, but I knew I was headed there. My space started to feel cluttered with too many small plants, and after a 2-week vacation, I realized that plant care is a part-time job. In the beginning of my plant collecting, it was all about the collecting for me. Every cool plant I saw, every variation, I just needed to have them all. I began to understand that my space does not, first of all, accommodate all plants, and also my conditions that I'm able to provide are not conducive to the healthy life of all plants. I had a fair number of plants die, and I frankly probably annoyed my family with taking up every shelf and bare floor space with plants. I began to curate my collection and be more careful and more thoughtful about the plants I was collecting. I began to understand better the conditions that I was able to provide and the amount of care I was willing to provide. At this point in my plant collection, I tend to give plants away fairly often. I'm also okay with letting a plant die if I've been struggling to keep it alive and the effort is no longer worth the reward. I'm okay with getting rid of a plant. Recently, I had been bringing a lot of plants into my home again. I was just seeing some fun new varieties and really excited about different Hoya and different philodendrons. And again, the number of plants I had outpaced the space I had for them and the time and effort I wanted to put into their care. So I challenged myself to give away 10 plants in a week. Why 10? Because it was a good number. I like a challenge, and it also forced me to stretch a bit. The first few plants were quite easy. There were plants that just weren't doing very well, just didn't look very good. And I put most of those outside, and at the end of the season, I will simply compost those with the rest of my outdoor plants, annual flowers, and such. A few other plants I offered to friends. I put a few up on Facebook Marketplace, and then I stretched a little bit and looked around my house and decided I didn't need 8 different golden pothos and other plants like that I had propagated, and I just didn't need that many copies of the same plant. So those plants I gave away as well. I don't like clutter as a rule, and I've done a number of purges of clothing and household items. And when I give myself a challenge like that, it tends to take on a life of its own. And the same thing has happened with my plants. I am now really on a mission to pull back and really only have the plants in my home that truly bring me joy. And that just makes my plant collection more exciting and more fun and less drudgery. If you've ever experienced the feeling of overwhelm, or you're kind of concerned you may get there someday, here are my 5 top tips for dealing with that. Tip number 1, know your space and know the time and effort that you're willing to put into plant care. As I said earlier, I just don't have the conditions for certain plants. My environment is rather dry, and dragging humidifiers around and refilling them, well, I'm not very good at that. And so certain plants that demand a lot of humidity, like calathea or ferns, just don't do well here, so I don't collect them. If you have abundant light, then succulents or cacti are going to be a good fit for you. Lower light, then you're going to be looking more toward philodendrons and pothos. And if you're short on floor space, then you're going to want trailing plants that you can put on shelves or hang from the ceiling. Number 2, if you like to have structure in your life, then set a regular time to check in on your collection and make sure that you still feel the love for all of your plants. Perhaps that's quarterly, maybe it's monthly even, where you just look around, evaluate how your plants are doing, how you're feeling about them, and then be okay with rehoming the plants that are not bringing you joy. And that leads right to tip number 3. Know when to cut your losses and move on. If a plant is not bringing you joy, offer it to a friend. Or if it's really not healthy, dispose of it. Put it in the compost. Send it back to the earth. It is okay to get rid of plants. It is okay to admit that you and a plant just don't have a good fit. Tip number 4 has to do with purchasing plants. I get a lot of emails from different plant shops that I've connected with, and it seems like there's always a great sale. And I am like everybody else. Boy, I click on that email because there might be that one amazing plant that is at a killer deal and I have to get it. But we know with retail, there's always going to be another sale. You will not miss out on the perfect, one-of-a-kind, only plant at a perfect, budget-friendly price. There's always a sale. And tip number 5, don't buy into the never too many plants trope, because it's not true. I can't tell you the ideal number of plants to own because it's different for everyone. The plant influencers that you see on social media dedicate a lot more time and money and effort into their plant collections than anyone has to. Don't try to mimic their collections. You do you. Know your space, know yourself, and choose plants that will add to your life and bring you joy. Thank you for watching my video. I hope that it was helpful to you to have some real talk about the other side of plant collecting when it's not always just joy and peace and happiness. Sometimes it gets overwhelming. If you enjoyed this video, if it provided some value to you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so I can continue to put out this planty content. As always, my plant friends, let's keep growing together a greener world.